Hey guys, welcome back to this week's pool here on Comic Relief Cast. I'm your host Jake.
And I'm your host Josh. Hey Jake, guess what time it is?
It's time to do...
What are we reading?
Alright guys, and because this is a big week for a lot of shops around the country, it is Free Comic Book Day this Saturday. We've had a lot of things we have to do to get prepared for it. Endgame, Game of Thrones all happened last weekend. There's just a lot of things going on. So what we're doing today is we're going to take the most high-profile books, save one or two, and just go over those. We're not going to go over everything that we usually do. It's just going to be the ones that are coming out that are probably more high profile, people are looking for, curious about how they are. So we're going to get straight into it with the one that nobody seems to care about that I decided to read anyway. It's called Nobody is in Control, Part 1, Planned Obsolescence. It's by Black Mass Comic Books, written by Patrick Kindlon. The artwork is done by Paul Tucker. And basically it's a conspiracy theory. This guy meets another dude in the woods. The dude in the woods is being very vague about what's going on, and the other guy lives there. He's like, hey, you're in my woods, you're trespassing, but I'm going to follow you basically anyway and see what's going on. And the guy's being very vague about who he is and what's going on, and how these conspiracy theories all tie together, but he keeps getting interrupted. Anyway, basically, long story short, they get to a point where, oh, maybe all these conspiracy theories are actually connected, and the obsolescence part comes from, like, big companies basically saying, for instance, like light bulbs, right? We're going to say they only last this much time, so that way you have to buy more, and how they kind of bought up real estate among the rest of the country, and, you know, now it ties into the cure for cancer, stuff like that. It's interesting, but it's a very scattered book. I'm not really that curious to read issue 2, I will say that. So it's just for me, Nobody's in Control, number 1. I'm going to give it 2.4 kink shames.
All right. I read Descendant. Is that how you say it? Yeah, Descendant.
Descendant.
Oh, wow.
Jesus,
I'm an idiot today. Yeah, jeez. By Aftershock Comics is number 1 by Stephanie Phillips and Evgeny Bornyakov. Yeah. It's a hard name to say.
Evgeny Bornyakov.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Man, I can't read the day. Maybe I shouldn't be reviewing. Okay, so this is a very different from the book that Jake read. This is about a politician's kid gets kidnapped. Baby gets kidnapped. And you follow this other guy who tells you it's all about conspiracy theories and the government. And it's about conspiracy theories because we apparently like conspiracy theories here. And that's what we go for.
Okay, and how was the book?
It was a decent book.
Okay.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I'm going to give it 2.8 kink shames.
All right, now that
I got my feet wet and I'm into this now.
I think now we're finding our groove. The big book that we ordered 500 copies of in order to get those 3 variants is DCeased Year of the Villain number 1. It's only a 25-cent copy, guys. So if any of the shops that you guys go to did like what we did and they got, 500 copies, do those shops a favor. Pick up more than 1 copy just for the hell of it. It's only a quarter. So, but what this is has 3 parts. You've got part 1, which is Dooms, written by Scott Snyder. The art's done by Jim Chung. Part 2 is Leviathan, written by Bendis, and the art is by Alex Maleev. And the third part is Justice by James Tynion and Francis Manapul. And each one of these seems to be continuing a story that's either going on in Justice League Odyssey, or even, is it Batman? No, Leviathan's an Action Comics, sorry. So all that stuff, it's kind of like short parts all leading up to that. It's actually a pretty interesting little read. They call it Year of the Villain, and you're going to find out why. It seems that Luthor's got this big thing planned, and it's going to basically be encompassing the entire world, and it's going to bleed over into the things going on in Leviathan and Justice and stuff like that. So if this is anything to go by with Snyder and Jim Chung, which I don't think Jim Chung is going to be the regular artist, but if this is anything to go by with Bendis and Maleev teaming up again, I'm actually super excited about that.
Yeah, this book pretty much does exactly what DC Nations did. It's giving you 3 stories written and done by the artists that are going to be doing these certain events that's going to be big in the summer. So you got your Legion of Doom event kind of going on with just like part of the Year of the Villain. All this kind of ties in together. You got your Justice League stuff that's going on, and you got your event Leviathan that's going to be from the Action Comics. And you're just kind of getting a little preview of each one. This is a special little prelude that kind of leads to those. And I mean, it's definitely a good starting because I am excited about all 3 of these events after reading this.
Yeah, it's like Lex Luthor, the Batman Who Laughs, and Perpetua. Those are your 3 big main villains. Maybe with a little bit of Bane scattered in there too, but all of these separate stories seem to be kind of converging possibly into one, but it's definitely a pickup. It's definitely a must pickup for me. Not only is it because it's only 25 cents, but I think that if you're continuing to read some of the main DC titles, the main pillars of DC, you're going to be getting some intersection with this kind of stuff, and you're going to want to know what's going on. And I think, what is it? Bendis believe they're doing? Is it Batman in the Outside? No, it's not.
No, they're doing Event Leviathan.
Event Leviathan.
Yeah,
and that looks awesome to me.
Oh yeah, it looks like you're gonna have a pretty cool lineup with the Question and Plastic Man, some B-list characters.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that. So this is definitely a must pick up for me. For 25 cents, you really can't beat this.
You get a lot of reading material too.
I'm basing my judgment basically off the 25-cent price point, because honestly, who can't spare a quarter to get some pretty cool material? I'm gonna go 4.1. Kink Shames.
I'm actually at 4.1 Kink Shames as well. Yeah, because for 25 cents, you get a lot of reading material and you get a great lineup of artists and writers. You can't beat that.
Yeah, plus it's kind of setting up the chessboard for
totally.
for the summer. So, all right, moving on to Savage Avengers #1, written by Jerry Duggan and the art is done by Mike Deodato. This one's interesting. It's bringing Conan, Wolverine, Venom, Brother Voodoo, Punisher, all these characters kind of together in for this weird. Yeah, but spoiler, she's not in this issue. Bringing all these characters interestingly together, and it looks like it's actually kind of incorporating a bit of the Null stuff from the Venom series by Donny Cates. It's kind of referencing the Avengers No Road Home stuff with Conan. It's even got a few nods to the death of Logan. So all these things are kind of coming together. And you don't really get a whole lot of answers in this book. It's all set up, but it does create a lot of interest on my part to go, okay, how are all these characters coming together? What the hell is really going on, and how is it going to resolve itself? So I'm definitely interested in this book.
I definitely will. It definitely gets you intrigued to kind of find out what's going on, because you can assume a lot of stuff by looking at it, but it does seem like they are piecing a bunch of stuff together. But one thing that's really cool is, like, in the beginning of the book, you just get straight into it with, like, Conan fighting the Hand. Yeah. And that's just, like, really cool to see. If you're a Conan fan, that is something that you probably have been, like, it's one of the reasons why you get so excited about him crossing over to the 616 universe. And then him also, kind of like fighting side by side with Wolverine. That's pretty badass. But in
classic, like, Marvel team-up fashion, the heroes kind of got to fight first. So, it's pretty cool. Jerry Duggan's not my favorite writer. I don't think this is Mike Deodato's best pencil work.
There's something off about it, but I've seen some other panels for other books that he's supposed to be doing for the series, and they look really good, but this one just did not really do it for me.
I mean, this looks all like his Old Man Logan stuff that he was doing, so it looks like his style is just kind of going this direction, which is fine because it's still pretty good. But for Savage Avengers #1, I'm going to give it a 3.25. Kink Shames, because I'm interested to see where it goes. This book doesn't give a lot of information, but this lineup of characters and this cast of characters, you can't help but be interested in.
Oh yeah, I give it 3.35 Kink Shames. Mostly, I would go a little bit higher if it was better Deodato work, but it wasn't his best.
Yeah. All right, moving on to DCeased #1 by Tom Taylor, Harrison, Herron, Guadiano, and Barreto. This one's interesting as far as art goes. So the artist changes from one artist, and then you go to, like, Apocalypse, and it's a different artist, and that artist just did not work for me. And then they switched back to who you originally started off with, I believe. And but basically, it's kind of DC's version of Marvel Zombies in a way. But this one is actually taking the time to explain how everything happened. We get to see the past events that lead up to what's going on. And it's somewhat comical, somewhat serious, a little bit cliche. It's a little bit of all that kind of wrapped into one.
Yeah. So when I first started reading this, I was kind of a little like, this is kind of stupid. But as I got further along into it, I started having fun. This kind of was, the way I kind of felt with this is the same way that I felt about Hulk for Reens, that this is just a fun book. And that I think it's actually pretty good. I'm excited about reading the next issue. It has some great variants, some great regular covers that's coming up too. You got Capullo on this one, and then Lionel Francis Hughes supposed to be doing a cover for the next issue. I believe.
Well, you also got Matina and Jenny Frison doing covers, and plus there's also a blank cover out.
Is it Putri? Putri does the horror movie.
Oh, okay.
Covers.
I was thinking it was Frison. Yeah, so I mean, the only thing that was a little wonky for me was kind of this shifting tone between satirical, like they're very much satirizing the world that we live in today, and then there's also these serious elements. So there's a delicate balance there that I think works pretty well. There's a Batman cliche in here that I was just really tired of. That I'm just tired of seeing, but they kind of make it work.
The thing is with that cliche, there's like some people who absolutely hate it, and there's some people that love it. And I'm one of those people that's annoyed by it.
I'm in the middle. I'm kind of indifferent. I think if it works well, then it works well. If it doesn't, it's very obvious. So the ending of this book is where I say it gets kind of serious and weird in the beginning. I think it's a little bit more of the comical stuff. So I don't know. If I'm thinking in my mind like, okay, this is something along the lines of Marvel Zombies, then okay, I can get behind it in that vein. But something tells me DC is going to be taking this a little bit more seriously in the next coming issues. But for what it is in issue 1, plus there are some really cool variants. I mean, even if you're not interested in the book, you're going to want to pick up at least one copy of the variant of either the It cover or the Zombie Batman Matina cover. I think one of those two would just be really good in anybody's collection. But for what's in the book, I'm going to give it a 2.8.
Wow. Okay, so I'm a little bit higher.
I'm going to give it 2.8 kink shames only because I'm not sure what tone this is going to strike.
Okay, I get where you're coming from, because that is another thing. If the next issue comes out, then it goes for a different tone, then this grade is going to obviously change. But for me, I did have a lot of fun with it. The whole premise behind this is actually something I really think is great. I'm giving it a 3.75.
Oh wow, okay.
I'm a lot higher than you.
Wow, you're almost
but that's only
full
because.
point.
But I will say this. What you said, I'm judging this book off of what I've just read.
Yeah.
If they go another route with it on the second issue, then my grade on this issue will change.
Okay.
But if they go the way that I hope they're going, I'll be down.
All right. What I'm taking from is the way that this book ends. That's probably going to be a better signifier of what's coming next. But we'll see. You're right.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know. All right. Moving on to War of the Realms, number 3, written by Jason Aaron. The art is done by Russell Dodderman. And honestly, when you first open up this book, you're gonna question: is Russell Dodderman still on the art here? That both of us did that actually.
Yeah.
And I've definitely seen some better line work from Russell Dodderman, but it does get progressively better throughout the book. What's weird about this is issue 3. I thought was what issue 2 was. Issue 2 was everyone's going here, everyone's going here, everyone's doing their part, and then it's gonna catch some steam. But it seems like this book is still kind of trying to catch up with all the tie-ins, right? It's like, okay, I want to make sure all the tie-ins are kind of syncing up with what's going on in this book. So there's a lot of jumping around. There's a lot of things going on where you're going from this team to this team, and everyone's off on their own mission. And then it all kind of culminates in the very end of the book when Cap and his team see what's going on in Jotunheim. And that's when I'm like, okay, awesome. Hopefully issue 4 really hits the ground running with this premise. This is where things are going to go. It's going to finally focus up. This book did not focus up enough for me to really get into it because I couldn't get into a groove.
Yeah, I think that this is actually kind of what I expected from this issue. I feel like the last issue is exactly kind of like it was setting up the chessboard, as what you said in our last review, that the issue 2 is setting up the chessboard. The first issue was just to get you in there and get you in your seats and get you excited. Second issue is setting up the chessboard. And I feel like this is you taking your first couple of pawn moves. And I feel like with the 4th issue, after seeing how this ends, that's when we're going to see some of the big moves, where we're going to be seeing some of the you pulling out your knight and your rook and shit. Yeah, I'm going further with the chess metaphors. Yeah. But to me, this feels like this is exactly what it was setting up. We're putting out our pawns. We're slowly getting our feet in there, getting it going, and then next issue, that's when we're going to start throwing out the big hitters.
Well, I hope issue 4 is a little bit more focused up the way issue 1 was. That's my only hope. This one, like I said, you're spending very brief times with a few different teams.
And it sucks, because right when you start getting really into those certain teams,
like,
then
you're
going to take you back over to another one.
Yeah, you go to a cutscene to the other team and what's going on, so you don't see how some things are getting resolved. But I will be honest, I am starting to get a little bit worried that this title is going to be heavily reliant on the tie-ins. And I don't really want that. I want this to be a much more self-contained book and not rely too much on your knowledge of what's going on in the tie-ins to catch you up. I don't want that. As of now, I don't feel like still don't feel like we're there. I don't feel like if you haven't read the tie-ins, you're lost in this book. That's not how I feel about this. I do think they help out your reading comprehension a bit, but you are not to the point yet where those are absolutely necessary tie-in reads in order to finish War of the Realms. This issue is going to get a 2.75 kink shames from me, and trust me, I'm a little surprised to be saying that as low, but it's not a lot happens in this, and it's a lot of jumping around.
Maybe I am just more fair today. Okay, I give it 3.5 King Shames.
Oh my goodness. Okay, yeah.
I mean, I still liked it. The ending gets me excited. There's still pieces that's going on that's still really good. I think the only problem I have with this issue, for the most part, is the fact that this is supposed to be a 6-issue miniseries.
Exactly.
I feel like this should have
through now.
Yeah, this should have been something that was also kind of like a little bit into that second issue. But for the most part, I'm glad that they did it this way, because if they didn't do this, then I feel like then we would have to rely on tie-ins to understand us. But this ends on a great, just like with the last 2 issues, this has these moments in this where you're going to go, oh, I can't wait for the 4th issue now.
Right, and that 6th issue, I will say, is supposed to be a giant-sized issue. Like,
yeah.
It's going to be a bigger book than your typical book here. So, all right, moving on to the last issue of this week's reading. It's War of the Realms, Strikeforce, The Dark Elf Realm, #1 by Brian Hill, and the pencils are done by Lionel Francis Yu, one of my favorite artists. And this one focuses on the team with Freya, She-Hulk, Punisher, Ghost Rider, and Blade. And it's about assembling this team. It spends a lot of time assembling the team. Why are you worthy of this team? I got to know what you're all about, what you're doing. But at the center of all of that, I think this is actually very much more a Punisher-focused book. I think this is a really good look in the character of the Punisher. Now, I don't think that Brian Hill gets the Punisher absolutely right, but there are some things he does get absolutely right.
Yeah, at the beginning of it, you kind of feel like, okay, this guy doesn't know anything about how the Punisher thinks.
Especially with his relation to his respect for Captain America.
Yeah, but once you start getting towards the end, then you start seeing that he's like, no, this guy understands it. He's diving into a deeper area of the Punisher for the most part, Frank Castle.
Right.
Yeah.
And and I will say, Josh and I actually read this book and War of the Realms issue 3 in separate orders. I read War of the Realms first, and then this, and then you read this, then War of the Realms, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right. So how do you feel that? What would you recommend as reading order?
Well, part of me wants to say that I recommend your reading order, but at the same time, I read this one first, and I feel like with War of the Realms issue 2, you do get introduced to this team. Or in issue 3, you get introduced to this team, and this team is already doing something that they're leading up to from this issue. So I would honestly suggest reading Strikeforce first.
I would actually agree.
Yeah.
I would say read Strikeforce. If you're going to pick up both issues, read Strikeforce first, then read War of the Realms #3. And I think that's probably the best reading order you will get for these. But this book, I'll say, I don't know what it is. I'm a sucker for character-centered, character-focused pieces as opposed to the big shebang. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of what made a lot of great moments in Endgame. There's a lot of good character moments. But I'll say with this, I'll actually give this one 3.1 Kink Shames. I actually think I enjoyed this issue a little bit better than I did the actual War of the Realms #3.
See, I enjoyed this. I did like the character piece on Punisher. It was a really cool outlook. The conversations between him and Freya, I really do enjoy those. I do have one problem. I've been kind of praising War of the Realms so far as an event by the fact that their tie-ins seem very cohesive. They're all kind of going at the same time in real time. But this does kind of throw me out a little bit because they have this Punisher mini-series of 3 issues written by Jerry Duggan going on, which is actually a pretty good series. But the thing is, though, is that has him on the ground. He's on the ground. He's helping these inmates in this hospital.
Getting them to Jersey,
Yeah, getting them to Jersey. And then all of a sudden, Punisher pops up at the Avengers mansion. And so it kind of throws me out a little bit in understanding where exactly Frank Castle is during this event.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, that's the only thing that I have that goes against this book. Other than that, this book was great, and I kind of wish that this was the idea of where Punisher is at. I'm going to give this one a 3.0.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, as you can see, Josh and I were a bit divided on a couple of these books, which doesn't really happen that often, so it's surprising. So I'm kind of glad there's a bit of a disparity. So let us know in the comments below if you guys are going to be planning to pick up any of these books. Let us know if you've already read them, what your thoughts on. Did you align more with my thoughts? Did you align more with Josh's thoughts? Let us know in the comments below. Like this video or dislike it. Feel free. Share this with your comic reading friends, guys. And, of course, always subscribe to the channel. More subscribers is always better for us. We really appreciate you guys listening this far. And hope you guys enjoyed Endgame. If you watch Game of Thrones, hope you enjoyed the Game of Thrones episode, and we will see you guys next weekend. Make sure to also hit up your local comic shop for Free Comic Book Day this Saturday.
I love you 3000.